Hey guys, it's Dr. Ellie here. I'm just hopping in on my pod to let you know that if you're a new parent or you're pregnant, you do not need to feel overwhelmed anymore about feeding your baby. If you're worried about like formula or breastfeeding or even starting solids, how to introduce allergens correctly, you're definitely not alone. If you don't know me, I'm Dr. Ellie, a holistic pediatrician here in Asheville, and I'm founder of Middle Path Integrative Pediatrics. I created this course, Nourish with Confidence, because of parents like you. It's super simple, it's self paced, it's easy to follow for busy parents who want a trustworthy, holistic, evidence based guidance or guide on how to feed their baby. So you're going to learn everything from choosing the best formula when breastfeeding is not an option, how to breastfeed if you're able to, and also how to introduce solid food safely and to avoid hidden toxins, how to set up your baby's gut health so that they can be healthy for the rest of their life. And so it comes with a lot of stuff, video modules, transcripts, references, PDFs, and quizzes. And of course, I'm always here in Asheville if you want to become a member too, to get all your questions answered. So as one parent said, Dr. Ellie, kind words in the third person, is incredibly knowledgeable and caring. She gave me peace of mind when I needed it most. So I recommend signing up. So go to my website, middlepathintegrativepediatrics.com/courses to enroll again today. Again, middlepathintegrativepediatrics.com/courses to enroll today. And this is because nourishing your baby shouldn't feel confusing. It should feel confident. All right. So wishing you well from Dr. Ellie. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Ellie. I'm here with my podcast, I Heal Kids. And if you don't know me, I am a holistic pediatrician and functional medicine practitioner in Asheville, North Carolina. And my practice is Middle Path Integrative Pediatrics. If you have any kiddos 0 to 21 who need holistic pediatrics, definitely reach out. And if you need functional medicine yourself, anyone from ages 2 to 102, please reach out for that too. If you don't know what functional medicine is, I have tons of pods on that, so go check those out. Today, I have been noodling on this topic for a while, and it's been on my mind, in my body, in my heart to share this with you. And today's the perfect day. So we're going to talk about calm first and why I really believe the nervous system becomes before everything. The nervous system regulation comes before the gut. It comes before the microbiome. It comes before the detox. And I know this is a radical kind of viewpoint, but I think I can at least convince you to get on the train. This comes on the tails of some people having interesting viewpoints in the government about Tylenol. And we can definitely talk about Tylenol later on because I know it's a polarizing topic. And I just want to help everyone come back to the middle path, which is where I think most of us live. And my nervous system got a little dysregulated listening to this information. And the reason is because in medicine, there's a nuance to everything, in my opinion. I was talking to someone about this the other day, actually, in my practice. It's like surgery. Surgery is a neutral thing. We have all kinds of feelings about surgery. We don't want to go into surgery. No one likes surgery. We don't want to have surgery if we don't need surgery, right? However, if we, I don't know, chopped our arm off, heaven forbid, and needed it reattached, most of us are going to say, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get that surgery. And same thing with different modalities, right? Like herbal treatments. When are they appropriate? When are they not? When do we use them? When do we not? When do we really need an antibiotic? When do we not? Most of the time we don't. But there may be some life-saving circumstances or circumstances where things are getting really bad that we do. And so we need to have nuance, right? And so this feeling of listening to all this information without nuance really got my nervous system riled up. So that is why I wanted to bring this topic to you. I think that there's a lot out there about the gut microbiome, and 100% that is so important. It's such a good foundation for health. But I want to talk about why your nervous system, your child's nervous system is really the foundation of health before we even start healing the gut or doing detox. And I'm not super heavy on like throwing a bunch of research studies at y'all, but I really thought that for this, pod or this particular informational session that I wanted to share with you a study. So here goes. So 2017, there was a review by some nurse scientists. Their names are Bates, Salisbury, and Ford. And they pulled together a bunch of different studies that measured stress in toddlers and preschoolers. And, it's easy to think that toddlers and preschoolers wouldn't have stress, right? Not so true. Okay. They actually measured cortisol, which is a stress hormone in their hair, which is just like a simple way to kind of like get a sample without kids having to like spit, which is like the usual way we collect cortisol in adults or like blood tests and things like that. Okay. And they actually found a lot higher cortisol levels in children exposed to ongoing stressors. So in this case, they were in particularly noticing, they noticed that in particular, children who had lower socioeconomic resources or higher maternal distress, so parents that were really distressed, were a lot more stressed out than other kids. So, in other words, persistent stress does show up biologically in kids, and it's likely through the HPA axis. Now, what in the world is an HPA axis? So this is basically talking about how your brain affects your adrenal system. And for those of y'all who are science geeks out there, it's the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. This does not mean that there's something wrong with your adrenal glands. You don't need an endocrinologist. You don't need cortisol shots. You're not going to go into any kind of stress crisis. This just means that you are pretty stressed. You are pretty burned out. You're running on fumes. Your adrenaline's high. Your cortisol's through the roof. And it's a chronic thing. Like you have been going and going and going at it for months, if not years, and your little body is burnt. That is what most people refer to as adrenal fatigue, which isn't my favorite term, but that's what people call it. But it's really the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis that we're talking about, okay? And in this case, we're talking about it in kids, which is to me, I wish I could say it's shocking. It's not shocking because I see it every single day in my practice, not because anybody's doing anything wrong or that people are bad parents or anything like that, but because the world is so chaotic. Of course, there are traumas. Of course, there are stresses. There are things that happen, divorces, moving schools, stuff that for kids that are, can be really, really stressful. And then unfortunately, of course, there are those situations that are more extreme. But in general, kids are just more stressed from what I see because of different things, right? All the inputs. So how many inputs do we have a day? We've got the phone input, we've got the TV input, we've got the computer input, we've got the school input, we're moving from class to class, we've got the after school activity input, we've got the achievement input. There's all these inputs that children are taking in that are like, oh, I need to do this and this and this and this and this to survive in this world and be successful. And that's really, really stressful for kids. Okay. So that's why nervous system regulation and family support matter so much in my practice. And I wish that we could just fix children inside a family system without addressing a family system, but it is 100% impossible. I'm going to tell you that right now. So I know that this is a hard thing to think about, that we ourselves have a lot to work on as adult humans. And we do, myself included, being flawed, imperfect, and having many, many things that I need to work on. Embracing that can be really helpful because our own regulation affects how we relate to others, including children, throughout the day. So we need to address our own shizazz as well as what's going on with our kids. All right, and I'll link that article, you guys, so that you can read it if you're super, super into science nerdy stuff. But it's the Measuring Stress in Young Children Using Hair Cortisol, the State of Science, and it's in Biological Research for Nursing 2017 by Bates et al. Okay? We touched on this a little bit about the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. I'm going to just briefly, I don't want to go into all the biochemistry because it's like super boring unless you're a biochem nerd like I am. But for most people, like my husband, people will like glaze over when I talk about this. But I just want to touch on, this is a functional medicine perspective. I have to put on my functional medicine hat. I'm not putting on my endocrinology hat. So I want to make that distinction because endocrinologists are amazing and they're great, but they're not doing this type of work. They're doing the work of, for example, you need more insulin because your pancreas has failed and now you have diabetes, or I'm trying to think of another one off the top of my head. I think that's the easiest one to think of, where your adrenals really have failed and they're no longer producing things. And then you need those cortisol. This is different. Okay. This is a different way of thinking about things. This is a different type of medicine. They're related, but they're more like cousins rather than sisters. Okay. So we can talk about that more. But in functional medicine, the way that we think about this is like our brain is being hammered by all these different stresses. Now, Our brain cannot distinguish between physical stress and emotional stress. So, whatever stress is happening, you broke your arm, you have a really upset stomach, you started a new school, you started a new job, you're working 60 hours a week, your child's going to daycare for 12 hours, whatever those stresses are for either you or them, that affects your brain or your hypothalamus. That will then do what? It's going to release hormones, okay? And those hormones affect the pituitary gland. That's a different gland in the body. And I'm going to super simplify and just say that that gland then releases other hormones that affect the adrenal glands. What is produced in the adrenal glands? Okay. So, under this circumstance, we're going to talk about adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol are friends. Okay. All of these things are amazing and great if you really need them because let's say you went to the ATM and a burglar was trying to like get your money or something. You need to like run away really, really fast. You need some adrenaline, right? You need your body to be on high alert, like ready to run, no resting happening, no digesting happening, no bathroom habits happening. I need to run. I need to fight. I need to do whatever to survive in this moment to get away. Okay, so that is a good response. Response that isn't healthy to live in is the response of I'm living in this fight, flight, freeze, high adrenaline, high cortisol, high noradrenaline for months, years. You know the pattern, okay? And a lot of us are living in that, including our children. And what that will actually do will decrease our immune system abilities. So when you have high cortisol, you have low immune. When you have low immune, what happens? You get hidden infections. Often, hidden infections are where? In the gut, okay? So that's why there's a lot of focus around the gut. That said, if we do not address this adrenal part first, this hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis first, it is very hard to clear up the gut. Why? Because the body does not want to rest. It does not want to digest. It does not want to relax. It does not want to poop. Okay. The body is holding it all together, ready to attack. So it's not ready to do any of those things. And there's a lot of physiological reasons for that, like producing good stomach acid, like being able to relax so that you can go to the bathroom, so that you can do all of those restorative things like sleep. Okay. All right. I touched on this for a minute, but I want to say this again. Adrenal fatigue is not a formal diagnosis, you guys. It's not like you're going to go to your endocrinologist and they're going to say you have adrenal fatigue. It's different. Okay. So I just want to point that out because I think there's a lot of confusion around that, understandably, because you're like, oh, it's hormones. Like, obviously, I need to go see my endocrinologist. They're not the right person for treating this. Okay. They treat a lot of things. They're amazing doctors. I love them. I refer to them frequently. Thank heavens for endocrinologists. But this is not their wheelhouse. Okay. This is something different. This is stress response. Okay. So if you see an endocrinologist for this, they're going to look at you like little antennas have come out of your head and you're an alien because they're just really not going to even know what you're talking about. In fact, they may get confused, especially if you go to the ER and tell them you have adrenal fatigue. They might start trying to give you cortisone shots and stuff. So this is a way of thinking about our stress response. Now, oftentimes kids will have a lot of stress dysregulation, HPA axis dysregulation. And when does this happen? Okay. It's often at the wrong times. And when I say wrong times, it's the times that we prefer to not happen, right? So bedtime, school transitions, when they're ill, when they're recovering, when they're tired, all the times where what happens is now we come from like, okay, we're stressed, but we're in a zone of tolerance to we are not in a zone of tolerance anymore. And things have clicked over and we are in zone of freak out. And by the way, this doesn't happen to just kids. This happens to adults too. I know y'all, I see you. I'm ready to help you too, okay? All of y'all entrepreneurs out there who are burning it up, all of y'all lawyers, I've seen you, I've treated you. If you need help with this, please reach out. I do functional medicine for you guys too. Parents, I know you're burned out too. Anyway, all that to say, many of us are up at night running through the million things that we have to do the next day. We can't sleep. We're not rested. We're wired and tired. We feel like garbage. Next thing you know, your kid says something a little wonky and we're flying off the handle. Okay. That is a recipe for what I call co-dysregulation. So now I'm dysregulated, kids dysregulated, I'm more dysregulated, kids more dysregulated, I'm more dysregulated. What's happening? We're just escalating, escalating, escalating. We're getting a massive blowout, right? So we need to find a way to kind of bring that down. This is a practice, you guys. This isn't something that is like, okay, I've got to, I've listened to it one podcast. So, I can do this now. It takes a lot of work. And it's, with any practice, it'll go in and out of range. We're not looking for perfection. We're looking for awareness, transitions, and hopefully some kind of grounding to get back into regulation. So in kids, so we talked about this adults, a lot of times it comes up as wired and tired, especially in teenagers, all of that, frequent wake ups at nights, all of this. Kids also will have like a lot of those tummy aches, clinginess, meltdowns after school, sicknesses, coughs, colds. A lot of things go along with that. Why? Because the immune system is off, all of this. Okay. This is why at Middle Path, I talk so much about this. I talk about nutrition, I talk about sleep, I talk about behavior, screen for stress patterns, especially in older children, because it's really hard to treat anything else. So digestion, immunity, attention, we all have to work harder when we're under this kind of stress. And I will tell you, and I completely understand this, people will resist this till the end of time because why? Lifestyle, things seem kind of simple, kind of like, well, I thought I knew that. And C, why can't I just take a boatload of supplements? And I've been there, right? Taking all my adrenal supplements and I'm like, okay, I haven't slept. I haven't done my breathing exercises. I'm not like working out. What do I do? I'll just take these supplements. Well, that's kind of the wrong way to look at things. Like we need to get these foundational pieces in place and then we can optimize with supplements. Supplements by definition are supplemental. Okay, supplemental, you guys. So we want it to be in addition to, not instead of. And sometimes we need those supplements initially while we get our lifestyle dialed in, right? But we don't want our supplements to become permanent, especially, a long list of supplements because, taking 64, I've never given anyone 64 supplements, but let's say you're on a boatload of supplements, you don't want to take this the rest of your life. So that's why we need to dial in all of this other stuff. Okay, so that brings me back to co-regulation. So you guys, kids, again, they borrow from our nervous systems. They can tell if there's distress, okay? They know that something is off 100% of the time, okay? So again, it's review that the Bates et al. Authors did, okay? If the parental state was out of range, like if the parent was dysregulated, like, whatever, sad, mad, depressed, all of this, that actually correlated to higher child cortisol. Okay. So we're talking about, I think their study was between 2 years old and 5 years old. So any of y'all that think that your 2-year-old doesn't know if you're dysregulated, they know. Okay, they know. So we got to work on this. We got to work on co-regulation as well as individual regulation. So regulating with our child and then having separate regulation things that we do. Because of course, children are at different developmental stages. And so some of the things are going to just vary a little bit. But simple things that we can do for co-regulation would be like a consistent routine, right? So if we're, not rushing because we're frequently late to work or we're running from the gym and now our child doesn't have clean clothes because we forgot to do the laundry. Like these things can throw us off and it happens to the best of us. Of course it does. I'm not saying like we're going to be 100% perfect at this all the time, but if in general we can have like a pattern of like, this is the time we get up and then we have a little time to eat and we're going to chat and we're not going to be on the phone. And then we're going to walk to school. And maybe while we're walking to school, we do some breathing. Like these are just examples to get your mind running. Okay. Your situation may be different. You may have to drive to school or they take the bus or whatever, but just kind of slowing it down and having some consistency throughout the day can be absolutely amazing. Okay. Warm attunement. What in the world? Okay. So how do I explain this? In most cases, maybe not a life-threatening situation. Okay, so like if your child's running towards traffic or an electrical wire, this may not be the time to use warm attunement. That may be the time to actually have some adrenaline and freak out a bit and go run after them and catch them screaming and yelling because we don't want them to fall into, dangerous situations. Now, if your child is just kind of dysregulated, out of whack, tantrum, freaking out, full meltdown, blowing up in the grocery store and everyone is looking at you, I promise the number one thing you can do to help the situation is to take a breath yourself, get down on their level, lower the body. Okay. So physically lower, look at your child and observe, lower your voice so we're not dysregulated, and say, I see you are upset. Okay. Try it. See how well that works. Now, it's not going to necessarily work with those like really young children that don't have rational thought yet, but at least try it with some of the kids that are like 2 years and up and see where you get. And then you can start having a conversation. But you have to acknowledge the emotion. Okay. You have to acknowledge the emotion. If you don't acknowledge the emotion, it's 99% of the time we're just going to be somewhere else. Okay. No one can, you can't take a deep breath if you don't realize that people realize that you're upset. Okay. The other one that we can do for co-regulation, repair after conflict. Okay, so no one's going to have a perfect parent. No one's like the Mother Teresa of parenting, right? No one's going to never yell or never snap or never have like a bad moment or a bad day. Of course not. That's not reality. But let's say something gets out of whack and you snap at your 9-year-old and you're like, oh, that's just not like my best self. That's not how I wanted to react. Repairing that. So going to them and saying, oh my goodness, like, I reacted poorly. Like, this is not how I want to be. Can we try again? All those things. Okay. So we want to repair because no child needs a 100% quote unquote perfect parent all the time, but they do need a parent that can say, I was wrong. Okay. So there's just some little examples. I think that other things that are really helpful would be just kind of looking at the micro environment in your home. So what is the lighting? What is the sound? What is the pacing of things? Morning times, bedtimes, and how are, all the grownups around handling their own stress? Okay. So look at some of those things. Cause if you notice like, oh my goodness, my house is super cluttered and I've got this like bright light that's like fluorescent in my face all the time and I've got my music jazzed up all the time, that's going to naturally like raise the energy. And there's times for that. There's times we want to raise the energy, but if what we're running to is calm the energy, that's a different vibe. Okay, so take a look at that. All right, I want to just briefly flip back to gut and detox. Okay, I am not here to say, I am not saying gut and detox are not important. They are 100% important. They're still important. They're always going to be important. And, in fact, if you need help with gut, go to my Nourish with Confidence course, especially for all of y'all. It's for y'all that have 0 to 12-month-olds, okay? And it's going to teach you all about like everything from first taste to toddler feeding and some strategies on how to make sure the microbiome is healthy so that we don't end up with a lot of issues down the line. Okay. If you're a practice member, you do get free access. If you're listening to this and you don't have access and you want it and you're a member, let me know. If you're not a member, go to my website, middlepathintegrativepediatrics.com, and click on that link. You can get 0 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, or the whole 9 yards. So of course, I think that the microbiome and the gut is important. But what I want to stress is it starts with regulation. Okay. So if we are, for example, sleeping well, we're going to have better gut mobility. We're going to have better immune balance. If we are calmer, of course, there's exceptions, kids that are neurodiverse and such, but in general, calmer, kids are going to accept foods better, supplements better, even medical procedures. The calmer that we are around it, most kids will start to attune to our state of mind about something. So this is why medical practitioners just would love it if we could have a little bit of more I don't know. When we have to do a blood draw, it's really helpful, parents, if you can just kind of bring the level of anxiety around it down. Okay. Because sometimes we have so much anxiety about it, but the kid would actually be fine. Okay. Same with acupuncture, actually. A lot of kids are fine with acupuncture. See my episode on Dr. Jen if you're interested in that. Or not on Dr. Jen, with Dr. Jen. She's our pediatric acupuncturist here in town. A lot of kids will accept acupuncture and you wouldn't think it. You wouldn't think it, but they will. Okay, so here's the thing. Stress hormones, among with all the other things that they do, they also loosen the gut barrier. It's through something called zonulin. Okay, so the gut is lined with all these little skin cells. This zonulin thing happens, and the skin cells, instead of being attached at a tight junction, so it's tightly attached. They pull apart, okay? And that can change the microbiome. So that will then affect what? So in functional medicine, we call this leaky gut. That is a functional medicine concept, not a formal diagnosis. This is something that we look at when I'm putting my functional medicine hat on, right? So what happens? The microbiome gets off track. What the heck is your microbiome? The balance of the good and the bad bacteria. Okay. So that gets out of whack. We get gut infections because something overgrows or something sneaks in that shouldn't be there. So something came in that shouldn't have come in, and things that should have stayed in have now gone out of those junctions. It's gone through the wrong way. I need a diagram, but you get the picture. Okay, so what does that do? So then we start to overwhelm what the detox systems. Okay, so now we've got all this crap in our body and we need to kind of get it out. So again, it's all starting with the adrenals. Okay, things that I think are important. How do I want to say this? Let's call this state then skills algorithm. So this is like, how do we keep things predictable? So, in visits, like if you visit with me, like what is a safety cue? Voice. So I'm speaking to you respectfully with a friendly voice. You know that you can talk to me about anything. We're making eye contact. I'm predictable. I show up when I say I'm going to show up. Okay. That is a safety cue. You know that I'm a safe person. We need to do that with children. Okay. So we need to have a calm voice. We need to have eye contact. We need to be predictable. We need to show up for them. Okay. And then there's other things, right? Like rhythm. Okay, so our sleep-wake windows, our meal timing, when are they happening? Are they chaotic? Are they all over the place? Do we even know when mealtime is? And sometimes we don't, okay, because life happens. And that's okay. That's not like you're a bad parent. No, it's just like, okay, this is something that I need to think about. Like, when are we eating? Like, are we eating consistently? Are we getting up the same time consistently? Are we going to bed at the right times? For example, our core sleep wake hours, for like older children and adults and all of that, we want to be asleep from 10 to 6. Obviously, babies and all that and toddlers have naps and, different things, but our core hours are 10 to 6. And if if our teenager's going to bed at 3 and getting up at 2, that is dysregulation city for serotonin, our happy, calm chemical, and melatonin, and a billion other things. Okay, so rhythm. So we need rhythm. What's another thing? Movement. So we need daily outside time. We need rough and tumble play. We need to be unorganized outdoor play, playing in the yard. Doesn't need to be sports, you guys. Sports are great. Sports do a lot of great things. But what I'm talking about is just kids using their imagination, getting dirty, and climbing whatever's in your yard. Please just remove the poison ivy. We have so much of it in North Carolina. But yes, they need to go outside and experience nature because, this is like when people talk about forest bathing. Like, why is it like forest bathing? Sounds like a little woo-woo or whatever. But it's because they like the nature that we surround ourselves actually calms our nervous systems. Okay. Nourishment. So we want protein. We want healthy proteins. We want healthy fats. We want colorful plants. Okay. And lots of colorful plants. I know y'all are going to fight me on that. My kid does not eat anything. I've heard it. We will work through it. We will fix it. It is fine. Just come on in. You don't scare me. Okay. And then after all of this, then we can start addressing like the targeted gut and detox steps and all of this. So it's like some practical support, you guys, for supporting healthy vagal tone. What the heck is vagal tone? This is just another way of saying, we're relaxed, we're happy, our adrenals are fine, our hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis is like in tune, all of that. Okay. What can we do? Okay. So a couple of things about this. Breath work and all of that. We want to do this in daily micro doses, 2 to 3 minutes, a few times a day. This is not something that I would recommend. In fact, I don't recommend doing this when your child is already escalated. The last thing anyone wants to hear when they're escalated is what? Just take a deep breath. And you're like, I can't breathe. Okay. So not a good time for this unless your child is extremely practiced. And most of us aren't. Let's just be honest. We just need the practice. Okay. So a couple that I like are smell the flower, blow the candle. So we're asking our children to imagine smelling a flower. So taking a deep breath through their nose and blowing out a candle. And so what are we doing? We're exhaling. Okay. So smell the flower, blow out the candle, 2 to 3 minutes. Breath exercise for kids. Okay. Humming, chanting. Love it. Love it. Humming, singing. bath time, car rides, anything like that. Super calming for the nervous system. Break out. If you're like feeling some stress in the morning and you break out that tay-tay, I'm going to tell you, you're going to feel a little better unless you really don't, no, you're just one of those people that's just not into our music, which then we got to talk. Just kidding. I also like the blues. Okay. Gargle and cold splash. This is age appropriate, of course. Like, you're not going to do this to a toddler or, newborn, but like if you get dysregulated, remember your mom would say like, or maybe you had one of those grandmas, go wash your face, right? Go wash your face. Just get that cold water in your face. Just kind of feel that. Or just to break yourself out of a little bit of dysregulation, you can gargle. You can gargle because that sensation is really, really calming. Okay. And even preschoolers can do this, like supervised. Okay. Play to regulate stuff. So animals are great for this. So like if you have an animal, like a dog that you walk, or even I actually even saw someone walking their cat recently, which was really amazing to see. So you can do that, I guess. I don't know. I'm not an animal trainer. Maybe ask about that before you do it. But like, let's say you have an animal, go for a walk, or even if you don't go for a walk. Okay. Wall push offs. Okay. So if you're like stressed out, push up against a wall. Okay. Just kind of get that energy out, or even heavy work. Like if you're home and you're like, oh, I got some anger, go pick up that big old basket of laundry and take it downstairs and throw it in. That can get some of that energy out. Okay. Other things we can do are just things with touch proprioception. So, like if you're doing firm, loving squeezes, if you're hugging pillows, if you're massaging feet, you can use, unscented lotions, or you could use like either, even like, as long as your child's not sensitive, like a coconut oil with a couple drops of chamomile or lavender, that kind of thing. Okay. Again, rhythm and sunlight. I really cannot stress this enough because I think we're just very out of whack with this, all of us, myself included. I have to work really hard at this because my tendency is to be on my laptop answering questions that parents have because I love answering them. But really, is it that sustainable for me to be up at 10 o'clock answering questions? No, it's not. And why? Because we need that dimming of the lights at night. We need the calming. We need to mirror what's going on outside, inside. Okay, so as the sun is setting, we need to dim. As the sun is rising, we need to see the light. So oftentimes, like with adults, with a massive, with really any adrenal dysregulation, I'll recommend go outside in the morning and have your tea, whatever it may be that you're doing to wake up. Okay, because your photoreceptors in your eye actually need to see that. Okay, nutrition could not say enough. I mean. Y'all, go see the freaking course, first of all, for 0 to 1 years old. Beyond that, join the practice because I have a lot to say about nutrition and it's hard work. But essentially, we want to get at least at breakfast something with some protein and something with complex carbohydrates, something that's a little more sustainable. Definitely, please no Pop-Tarts, Eggo waffles. I'm trying to think what other non-food foods are out there, but there's a lot of non-food foods. We want something that your great grandma would recognize as food. Okay. Minerals. So I know. Beans, greens, all those things that you're like, but Dr. Ellie, my kid just wants nuggets and fries. I'm like, okay, we're going to talk, but it is better to have beans and greens for magnesium because it's very calming to the nervous system, bananas, potatoes for potassium, sodium adequacy. We need to be careful if that is in, like especially like athletic kids that are very athletic, we need to worry more about sodium. Most kids, it's really just water that we're worried about. But our extreme athletes, we do think about sodium, but we do need these minerals. Okay. Supplemental support. I know you guys want to know about this because it's always the question, what do I give my child for X, Y, and Z? And that is all great. I'm here to serve. And please remember, we want to do all those foundational things first. So what are some super simple things? Vitamin D. Okay. So depends on what age you are, 400 IU for babies, 600 for kind of that toddler group, maybe up to 1,000, and then older kids more than that. So just make sure you check in with your pediatrician about the right dosing. Probiotics, okay, so this is also good for the gut immune balance, same as with D3, that is good for immune regulation. Omegas, which is great for neuroinflammation modulation. So you can get omegas, you guys, from fish or algae. So if you're vegan, vegetarian, you can still get this for your kids. All of this is super healthy for the HPA axis. Magnesium, glycinate or citrate, depending on your stool pattern. So citrate will make you poop, glycinate won't. Yeah, ask me for a dose because we'll need to figure it out together. Chamomile, so glycerite, tea, herbal tinctures, all of that. That is also very calming. There's a million other things, passion flower, theanine, all of that. But we'll link those to our full script dispensary in the show notes. But essentially, it's us.fullscript.com/welcome/middle path integrative pediatrics. I would shorten that if I totally could. Parents, I want to make sure that you do your 60-second exhale drills. Have honest boundaries around evenings. Do a 5-minute outdoor reset, after daycare, whatever it may be. Work those out through your day because you really need to do those as well. And I'm happy to talk to you about that and support you with that in my functional medicine practice because it really does take some repatterning. Okay. Now, that said, if you've got chronic stress, postpartum, things that are very, very severe that you need psychiatric intervention, please get that as well because that's a different bag. And it's again, it's a cousin. It's not a sister. So we need to treat those psychiatric, deep mental health concerns while also addressing the HPA axis, but we don't want to just do one or the other. Okay. Red flags, when to come in. Okay. All the usual, you guys. If you're seeing persistent vomiting, weight loss, dehydration, fever in less than 3 months old, difficulty breathing, unusual lethargy, any major regression, stuff that makes you think your child might be extremely anxious, extremely depressed, extremely unregulated, come in more urgently. And book a visit, you guys. If your sleep is chronically disrupted, there's daily stomach aches, there's headaches, picky eating with poor growth, behavior changes, all tied to stressors. Oh, gosh, there's so many things. Vomiting, diarrhea, anything that's been going on long term. So I just want to emphasize before I close, we want to do calm first, family system and nervous system first to set the stage for everything else, and then the gut, and then the detox. So I invite you to join my newsletter. If you're not already part of it, go to my website, you can sign up there, and you'll get more tips on all kinds of things, calming stuff, nurse kit checklists. I've done lunch boxes. I've done microbiome. I've done detox. If you want all those tips, please go sign up. And of course, if you need extra support for feeding your baby 0 to 1, check out my Nourished with Confidence course. And for holistic pediatrics or functional medicine, find me at middlepathintegrativepediatrics.com. I am wishing you guys well. Bye. Hey guys, are you a new parent wondering, when do I start peanut butter? What about eggs, gluten? I don't know. It can feel really scary. And evidence shows that early introduction of allergenic food can actually prevent allergies. But how and when matters. And I'm going to walk you guys through it step by step through my course. So skip the guesswork, learn exactly what to do in my Nourish with Confidence class, and sign up today. Link in bio.